Yes, welcome to this very exhilarating symposium of the year, let's say. It's our privilege to be broadcasting in new media as such. I would like to thank all the organizers and especially the head of the department, Fevzi Hoca, and everybody else who has helped to put this really celebrating symposium together. And my name is Fatoş Adiloğlu, and I am the moderator of this session. It's going to be a special session because we only have one presenter, actually one paper to be presented by two presenters, but it only, I guess, works out for the better because we have a very interesting presentation before us. And the two speakers are coming from Eastern Mediterranean University. Ediz Pirhan is a PhD candidate in radio and television and cinema department. And he is also a research assistant. And last but not the least, Professor Dr. Bahire Özad, who is the department head of radio, television, and cinema at Eastern Mediterranean University, with lots of different publishings she has, and she has lots of interest in many areas of the cinema. And now she is with her PhD candidate working on this very interesting paper, which we are looking forward to hearing out and actually learning the impact and the effect of sound and music and all the 9 yards about this gorgeous film, which has many awards. Okay, so I guess the floor is yours, and Ediz is going to be presenting, I suppose. And Bahire Hocam is here.
I would like to welcome you all to this afternoon's presentation. Our topic is related to the influence of music on films. This is an area Ediz is studying for his PhD. Actually, this is not a part of his study for PhD, but it is in a similar line. We are going to talk about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is one of the award-winning, Oscar award-winning, Academy award-winning films. It has got awards in all areas, and sound is one of them. And when we talk about film, mostly film is understood as the visual side, and we are more interested in the sound side. And in this study, we are going to look at how soundtracks of the film The Lord of the Rings are used to anchor certain locations and hence influence the audience. When discussing this, we are going to talk about Aristotle's rhetoric, which ethos, logos, and pathos. And we believe that music creates pathos and enhance the influence of the film over the audience. And Ediz Hocam, floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you all for this lovely, well-organized symposium. I'm really glad to be here. As my Bahire Hocam said, we're going to talk about how strong and how persuasive the music is in films. And usually, visual parts are the most concerned parts when it comes to the film studies. The sound is not that, it's not in the equal level as the visuals when we look at the recent studies that has been done. But in actual terms, they are actually part of this equation, and they're equal. They must be equally balanced to have the impact on the audience. To just sorry for let me full screen it. It has to be in the equal terms to have the balance to affect the audience, like let's say 100%, because they're all part of this equation. There are lots of factors in this equation, but the visual part and the sound part, they are equal. They have the equal terms, let's say. And if one of those are lesser than the other, let's say, the scene that will represent it to the audience can be not effective as it should be. So before I continue to this study, I want to just tell you a little bit story that will help me to explain myself and help you to understand better what I am trying to actually tell here. So I was born in a musical family. My mother is a pianist. She's not a professional, but she's playing piano since the day I was born. And I was those privileged people who have an actual piano inside their house. So I actually grew up with music. And like I said, my mom wasn't a professional pianist. She was a decent pianist, and she was playing these songs, couple of songs, in repeat in my childhood. And one of them called Paralel, and she was playing the Richard Clayderman version of it. And when I was hearing it, like from my childhood, she isn't playing it very well now. She is not playing that much now, but she was playing frequently when I was like between the age of 5 and 10. And the song literally put an anchor in that part of my life. So whenever I hear this song outside my house, or doesn't matter when it is, whenever I hear it, I immediately feel like that 5 to 10 years old boy again. So it literally persuades me to change my emotions to that nostalgic feeling of my childhood. And no matter what I do, and no matter how hard I try, whenever I hear this song, it has this persuasive power on me that I cannot control. And it doesn't matter which mood I am, if I'm happy or sad, it doesn't matter. It immediately affects me. So since then, since I understand the power of the music, I've been trying to do my studies on it. I did my master thesis on it as well. And I feel like there is a huge power on music that is connected to our emotions, and it literally persuades us. Like, I'm trying to choose a clever wording with my rhetoric to persuade you on my study. The music is doing the same on us with the cleverly arranged compositions. They're trying to change our feelings. They're trying to persuade us with our emotions. In terms of filmmaking, the original soundtracks actually is what's going on there. And filmmakers actually use this as controlling the audience's feeling. It's a great filmmaking technique. And if it's understood clearly, you can like persuade the audience feeling with music. But I'm not just saying only with music. Of course, the visual part is necessary. That's what we are trying to like show it here. The music is significant as the visual part as well. So, as I said, moving images, the films have audio and visual aspects. However, in this equation of the audio, like I said before, the audio part, not only music, but the audio part is considered as secondary. And this can be seen with the numbers of the researches that have been done. Usually the visual parts are the ones who's been analyzed rather than the sound. I'm not saying there aren't any, but the sound parts are neglected to the visual parts. And no matter how amazing the visual aspect is, as I said, the audio aspect, if it's not equally good, the scene may not be efficient. You can have like a very good scene with perfect setting, but if the sound is bad, in subconsciously, the audience will not like it. And it's the vice versa. You can have the perfect sound and music, but if the visuals are bad, it will not be effective as they are both perfect at the same time. And as I said, original soundtracks as musics play a significant part in films because they are the persuasive power, let's say, one of the persuasive power to persuade the audience to change their emotions, because films are actually one of the reason out there to change our emotions. We watch films to be entertained, and to be entertaining meaning is like, in a way, changing our emotions to that film so that we get entertained. And the persuasive power of music is actually very significant here. So music in general plays a significant part, but the original soundtracks, which is originally composed for films, play a much more huge part in this because they are original to that film. So it is specifically designed to that film. And they're specifically composed, and they give the audience, the filmmaker and the composer, the power to control the audience with it. So if an original track is cleverly composed, and by cleverly, I'm not going into deep in musicology or like music analysis. What I'm trying to do here is that how good the music is used inside the film. I'm not going to by cleverly composed meaning is like how cleverly it is used inside the film. It can only make the film better, but it makes the film as a whole, like a yin yang. They're with a whole with themselves. So in classic filmmaking, every film has their original soundtracks. It's a copyright thing, and every film has to be original, but every film has original soundtracks composed for them. But there are certain levels. Some films, mostly in mainstream media, they compose the scene, they compose the music according to their scenes. And some films, like Lord of the Rings, of course, there are compositions there that are composed for the scenes, but there are also compositions there that is specific to some kind of location or person, or let's say some faction. And this does not only make the soundtracks original, but also they create a theme song. And yes, there are other movies that have done this. It's not original to Lord of the Rings. Many films do this. And that's how we get the theme songs. But what Lord of the Rings did, that's why I chose this, is they used this theme songs to anchor a location for us. And even though they don't show the location to you, and when you hear the song, you feel that location's emotions. I will explain in detail as going on. So, aim of the study is, through the Lord of the Rings trilogy, to highlight the significance of the audio aspect, how powerful it is inside a movie, and understand the power of persuasion in original soundtracks on the audience. So basically what I'm talking about so far. So in this study, there are lots of music in Lord of the Rings. Howard Shore, the Lord of the Rings musical composer, wrote like nearly 3 hours of soundtrack for the movie. However, I'm going to talk about the theme songs that I categorized. And this study argues that these theme songs if cleverly composed, meaning cleverly used inside the film, have the power to persuade the audience to change their emotions accordingly. And in a way, theme songs persuade the audience to change their emotions to the presented one, but not the presented one with the visual. I'll explain that in a bit, but in short terms, when we see, let's say, a location, and when we get its emotion there, and when we hear its song later in different location, with different setting, with totally different, like, let's say, opposite theme, but when we hear the song, we feel like the initial place, where the song put the anchor in there. So I don't want to go too deep into the literature part of the article, but I want to explain some concepts to move on. First of all, we're dealing with persuasion, so we need to understand how persuasion works. And when we say persuasion, the guy to go is Aristotle, because he literally wrote a book about it. And Rhetoric is the book which is written in 350 before century. And in his book, you know, when in ancient Greek, persuasion was a thing because there were public speakers, and when public speakers needed to persuade their audience for their or someone else's goals. And in his book, Rhetoric, Aristotle explains that there are three modes of persuasion. And these are, let's say, the attack of plans, the plan of attacks to persuade their audience. And these three modes are ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is the credibility of the audience, the speaker. So let's say when a doctor is talking to you about a disease, he's actually using ethos on you, because he's creating ethos on you, because you know that he's a doctor, so he's credible in this profession. And he knows what he's talking about because he is talking with terminology. So this creates ethos on the patient's mind. So it gets convinced when the doctor says, because it's a doctor, he knows better than that. The other one is logos. I'm skipping pathos now. Logos is the logic one. And it's persuading your audience with logical things, as it says, as it shows with the brain. Just like a lawyer, like persuading the jury with facts and evidences. Also, what this study is basically interested in is pathos. Pathos is persuading your audience with emotion. Just like the song Poor Adeline persuades me when I listen to it. So what we're suggesting that is music is creating pathos on the audience so that they can change their emotions according to that. And this is a great way for filmmakers to have much more quality in their films, and also much more emotions to give to their audience. Also, Roland Barthes says that, and I'm going to talk about an image here, but I'm going to apply it to the music. Almost all images in all contexts are anchorage, which is what the song did to me. It puts an anchor onto the memory of my childhood. So when I relate to it, it goes there. When I hear the song, it puts an anchorage there. So when I hear it, my emotions are like the emotions of the 5 to 10-year-old me. So we did a qualitative methodology, and this studies hermeneutics, of course. And to make the analysis, we made some categories before the songs, and to put us as guidelines. So it's just a guideline category. I'm not just categorizing it over my head. This is just a guideline for me. And I had to focus on some part, and it was the locations, because there are many things to be analyzed. It's a 12-hour with extended editions, 12-hour of footage with many details, including music, many music. Like I said, it's 3 hours of music as well. And so we had to narrow it down. And finally, the final narrow down version of it was to choose these locations of Shire, Rohan, and Isengard and look to their theme songs and when they use inside the film and how did they use it. The reason why I chose this, there are bigger, let's say, locations there like Mordor, Minas Tirith, and there are many more songs that have the ability to stick into the audience's mind. But what gives the perfect setting for my for this study is Shire, Rohan, and Isengard, because as theme songs that I explained before, Shire, Rohan, especially Rohan and Isengard, have this perfect repetition throughout the film. Because there are some theme songs that only played in that theme and never played again, but it's a theme song there. But Shire, Rohan, and Isengard, they are continuous. So I will not talk about them all. I will only talk about Shire because it's like the perfect representation of my story. And the Shire actually in the film, as you can see in the picture, is like a green life, happily ever after village. The hobbits living there are like represented as stress-free. They drink, they have fun, and they have parties, and they have like a perfect system running there. So it's like, and the main goal of this Shire is to make you feel like home, because what is the feeling of home? Home is actually where we feel safe, where we feel happy, where we feel okay, relieved. And Shire is that perfect anchorage for this film, because it's the film starts with a prologue on how the war started, how the rings are created, and vice versa. But the real film actually starts with Shire, when Bilbo is telling what hobbits are. And it's the start of the first act, it's the start of the film, and we see Shire only at the beginning and at the end, which is the most happiest scenes throughout this 12-hour, because at the beginning they're happy, there is no conflicts yet. At the end, the conflicts are resolved, they're happy again. So the Shire is the perfect representation of, let's say, happiness and relief. And as I said, I think all of them. And this is a common filmmaking technique, actually. Especially, this is more visible in horror films, because in horror films, the conflict is way opposite in what's going on. Like in films, usually they start, not all of them, of course, but usually they start with something that you can create an empathy on. And when you create that empathy, so it's there to create that empathy, actually. So when you create that empathy on the characters, when a conflict happens, you feel the same way as the characters. So this is used in films too many times, and especially in horror films, it starts with a normal day of life so that we can create an empathy on them, and then the conflict happens, whatever happens, monsters and other, etc. Everything happens so that we feel the same way. If it started with the horror, because we're not in horror situation right now while watching the film, we will not create the empathy on. But because we're in a normal day and they start with normal day, you immediately create the empathy. That's what Shire is trying to do here. Because although the Rings is in like, Shire is the happiest place that we can all be. So it's like our home. It's where we all want to go after the film ends, because we feel with Sam and Frodo that we need to finish this and return home. And the music behind it is actually very persuasive on this. And this is where I'm going to get to my point. So in Shire, there's a music called Concerning Hobbits. The song's name is Concerning Hobbit, and it's mainly plays in Shire. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the video because we tested it and it's been like freezing. So I rather have to tell you about it. So in Concerning Hobbits, the Shire, the name actually comes from where Bilbo is talking about hobbits, explaining hobbits. In concerning hobbits, it's the main theme going outside the Shire. We only hear it on Shire at the end, beginning and at the end. We don't hear it throughout the movie, but we hear the many variations of the song. So that's how I categorize it, because every song plays somewhere once, but the variations, which is the themes, plays in the future on this film. So we hear the concerning hobbits in the beginning and at end, but we hear the variations of it mixed with other songs throughout the film. And the song has a calming tune, and because it's calm and because the Shire is like a calm and happy place, it creates a whole, like they become a whole with the scene, and they put an anchor in the scene, like they did the anchorage in the concerning of hobbits, Shire. So in that point, that music becomes the relief, the prosperity and happiness. So when the audience hear the music afterwards, they change the feelings. They feel like they're inside the Shire again, even though they don't see Shire. So if to explain more detail, let's say music is put an anchor on Shire, right? When Frodo and Sam goes through their adventure and faces off with different things, they've been through a lot. If you watch the film, you know that they go through a lot. They even like fall apart and come back again. And when they at their most desperate times, usually it's Sam is like relieving Frodo from the pain and saying that we're gonna do this and we're gonna go home. And in those moments, we hear the variations of the Shire. They're like this scene which is represented in here, which is totally the opposite of Shire. But as the music plays, we feel like we're inside the Shire. The music is the one who's persuading us. It's not the scene. And that's how strong it is in the film. That's how it strongly affects us, because we're seeing totally different thing. And if we saw this with different music, with dark music like Isengard's, we wouldn't feel happy. We wouldn't feel relieved that they're gonna make it. We would feel that it will be a failure. And this is completely the opposite of what the movie is intending to do. And the movie is actually managing to like do this on us, to like successfully giving the emotions they intended to us with the power of music. So it's actually very significant power on the filmmaking. Like I said, even though the scenes do not visually represent the emotions, the music persuades the audience to feel emotions alongside the characters. So because in this scene, they're in desperate future, they're in desperate situations. But in that scene, they managed to destroy the ring, and they're there and remembering home. And while they're remembering home, they feel like this relief, let's say relaxation. But if the music is not accompanied with the same emotions that put the anchor at the very beginning, we wouldn't feel the same way. So that's how important the music in the scenes. So as I said, in the most desperate situation, the song helps the audience to remember the Shire hobbits while watching the movie, and the audience feels like home, like they are. So as I said, I had some videos here concerning hobbits. This is the beginning scene where, in this scene, Bilbo, which is the uncle of Frodo, is actually telling us about hobbits, what hobbits are, how hobbits live, and you can see there that how hobbits are living like this fantasy happily ever after thing. And with the concerning hobbits, it plays full there with its full version of it. And when we hear it, we put the anchor there, saying that, okay, in our subconscious, we're saying that, okay, concerning hobbits and Shire, they're whole. When we hear this song, it's Shire again. And at the very end, which is this scene, it shows Minas Tirith, but after that, the four hobbits go back to Shire. And when they go back to Shire, it plays a variation of the concerning hobbits. It's much more like, not depressing, but more softer, because they manage to do it and they come back. And we feel the home again. And when we hear the music variations of concerning the Hobbit, it gets less and less and less and less, because they're going far away from their home, and they're starting, especially in one scene, Frodo completely forgot what Shire looked like. And in that scene, when Frodo was talking, we couldn't hear concerning hobbits, because there is no need to remind us home. But when Sam started talking it, saying that I still remember this and I still remember that, we hear concerning hobbits there. And this gives the this gives the audience the feelings that Sam has, and this can only be done with music. But oh, sorry, I accidentally started them. Just pass through here. And as I said in here, these were the desperation scenes of, like, this. In this scene, the Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first slide I show you in the first film. There are 9 of them, and they become a fellowship, and they have to break apart because Frodo can't trust anyone with the ring, and the only person who can come with him is Sam. So Frodo runs away, and Sam is there. So it's one of the first of desperation scenes we see in the film. And in that scene, we hear the tones of concerning hobbits when Sam says, "I'm not leaving you, I'm gonna be with you, and we're gonna go back home. We're gonna finish this because I promised Gandalf," and etc. We hear concerning hobbits because we need that kind of relief. And in the film, the only place that can give us relief is concerning hobbits, Shire. So that's what it plays. And the other scenes are similarly the same way. They are there. They are using the variations of concerning hobbits in the desperate situations outside the Shire, without seeing Shire, and we are with showing us something desperately, like something bad, not good, or relaxed as Shire. The music is persuading us through these scenes. I'm trying to pass them, but they start. Okay. So, as I said, I will only talk about Shire here because it is the perfect representation for me. So, why would I told you this story before? Because that song I hear, like Poor Adalin, that my mom played, is actually concerning hobbits. And Shire is actually my childhood, which I put the anchor on. So it's doing the same thing. When I hear the song, even though I'm not in the setting, I'm living in a different, I'm living in different house now. I don't see my mom. I'm not seeing anything. I'm in completely different situation. But when I hear the song, I go back to that home again. And what Shire is doing here again is we're not seeing Shire. We're only seeing the anchor song that to put this there. So first of all, the analysis on these scenes, which is much more longer in the paper, and it has different settings in different locations. For example, Shire's anchor is home, but in Rohan's, I will talk about them very, very little. In Rohan's is heroism and bravery and the power to overcome stuff, because Rohan has always been in very bad situations that came out victorious. And Rohan is the representation of this heroism, this willpower. And Isengard is the representation of the villainy, the evil that is that everyone has inside it, and it provokes those emotions outside. So the analysis on these scenes mentioned and their music accompany agrees that music has a persuasive power on what the audience feels. And the visual scenes have a huge impact on the audience, of course. I'm not saying it's only the music and it's just the music that is important. No, the visual scenes is as important as the films, because if the shire wasn't visually beautiful, the music wouldn't matter. So that's how they're both in the same level in the equation, because shire is represented us with visually beautifully, and the song represented us is in perfect, let's say, yin yang with it. So the visual scenes have a huge impact on the audience to create these emotions. However, the power of the music should not be disregarded. They are equally the same. And the reason why the small scenes, by small, I'm not saying they're small, but there are many scenes that have memorable things, especially in the battle scenes, which is in one of the analysis I put Rohan there. In Rohan's analysis, it is like that. But there are some scenes that they are unforgettable. But when I watched the first time Lord of the Rings back years ago, the scene where Sam is crying and telling Frodo that we're gonna go home never left my mind. I always remember that, because it's kind of put an anchor in there. So it's a small scene compared to others, but they become important. They become unforgettable. And also, as the study suggests, I said it before, I said lots of time, music have the power to persuade the audience. And as I'm telling you, I told you this before as well, as cleverly chosen words are enough to persuade an audience, just like I'm cleverly thinking what to say to persuade you on this study. The music is doing the same thing, actually. And sound, among other factions, like the visual, or let's say the people who's playing the characters, and other lots of the director, the other factors, sound, among other functions, as an anchor on locations and feelings that attach to them. And this anchorage provides the audience in relationship to feeling the location seeks to evoke. So just like how shire is represented and anchored as home and happiness, it's persuading the audience to feel like that. And the funny thing is, we're doing this every day. And it's very interesting, because we choose to listen to music. We listen to music. And when we are listening to music, we are actually choosing what to feel. Like, if I want to feel happy, I want to feel a happy song. If I want to feel sad, I open a sad song. And I'm literally telling the song to persuade me to feel happy, persuade me to feel sad. And in film, the filmmakers actually decide what you feel with the power of the music, and not, of course, not with only the power of music, but the music plays huge role in this part. So that's all, and thank you for listening. If you have questions, you're welcome, both in English and Turkish.
Yes, thank you very much for this emotional presentation, I must say.
Sorry, Hocam, I didn't get that.
I said thank you very much for this very emotional presentation.
Thank you, Hocam.
And a highly personal one, I think.
Thank you.
Because
Yes.
you have your heart into it for sure. And your storytelling is very strong, I must say.
Thank you.
It was a very good presentation, and You just didn't feel the time pass because you full-heartedly explained it so well, you know.
Thank you.
I have a couple of issues. Maybe I would like to ask your opinion about. Maybe some words like,
Sure.
So you're talking about actually the relationship of music with time and space.
Sorry,
Right?
can you please repeat it because my internet just got stuck, so I didn't hear the question. It's happening again.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine now. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine now.
I believe when you're talking about locations and you're talking about emotions, you're actually talking about time and space.
Yes, kind of, yes.
Right. So, and I know I have noticed in the symposium that there's a very specific panel on the relationship of space in cinema, actually.
Yeah.
And I wish people who are interested in that session, I wish that they're here hearing you out right now, because you're not so far off, actually, because when you're talking about location, you're talking
it's
about
actually
space.
the setting, the space, yes. I mean, my main aim is the music, of course, like that's my priority, but in a connected way, the setting is actually important as well. So if I was in that panel, I'm sure it will be helpful to the listeners as well. Did you hear me, or?
Well, we got cut off a little bit. It is.
Okay. I said that, yes, music is my priority in this. What I'm most concerned about is the music and how audio and music is important in films. But yes, how the music is connected to the settings, or like the space, as you said, is important as well, and it's a big deal as well. So if I was in that panel, it wouldn't be far off, as you said.
Yes. And one of the other keywords is composition, of course.
Yeah.
And in the sense that it's a very important part of design. You know,
Yes.
Composition is a complete design. When you take a piece out of it, do you play any music, by the way, any instrument?
Yes, I play piano and guitar.
Okay, so you know what I mean.
I know.
If you take a couple of notes out, the whole composition breaks up.
Definitely.
Right?
That's what I said in cleverly composed thing. That clever part is the perfect composition that the film needed. So and if you take a part outside, the composition as a whole is completely missing and it loses its power.
Yes.
Sorry if I just. Okay.
No. Recently, a terminology comes up to talk about film as film design.
Film design.
Film design.
Film design, yeah, okay.
Yes. So basically, and the shortest definition of film is the ordering of space and time. That's the short film. Ordering of space and time. So basically, what you're saying is, again, how music is articulating the ordering of space and time, right?
Yes. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's the ordering of space and time, like a puzzle, connecting and creating a whole. And what I'm saying is that as there's a puzzle inside of you and you're trying to connect it, the pieces to create a whole canvas. And without music, the puzzle is all white. Let's say the visual parts are the ordering part, and music is as important. Or let's say half of the picture is missing without the music. So music needs to be there in the same order as the space of time as well. That's
Yes.
what I'm trying to argue.
So you could go with design in that sense, the way you think about it. And when you were presenting, I was thinking of construction and reconstruction of space and time.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting idea. Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And in a way, sculpting. You're sculpting, right?
Definitely. Yeah, sculpting like a statue.
So, yes, you're sculpting it. So it's almost like you're sculpting. Okay. So, very enthusiastic presentation. It is very enthusiastic one. You have your heart into it, and I would love to read the paper, actually.
Of course.
You know? And of course, you're talking about coding.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, coding, decoding.
Yes. Articulation.
Many things.
Yes.
Thank you, Özad.
Thank you. And thank you, Bahire Hocam, as well. A joint work and a great presentation. Let's see if anybody else is interested to ask a few more questions.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
I think that's it. We can finish, Özad.
Oh, unfortunately, I just wish I just wish you talked more about the other places.
Thank you, Hocam.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for listening to us well. I hope I show you and help you with some issues that is inside the cinema. And thank you.
Of course, definitely. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, hope to see everybody in another panel, I guess.
Yeah. See you later.
See you later then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm catching a buzz. Never nothing when it's real.